You're listening to the Fooled by the Root podcast.
This is Heidi Marble. I'm so glad you're here to listen to this anonymous episode with Christina. So many of you will be able to relate to the guilt and shame and secrecy that Christina is wrapped in because she does not want to hurt her adoptive family. But she also has found her original family and loves them and wants a relationship. So she is put in a very terrible position. She speaks very honestly about the pain that all of that is causing. I did this interview a few months ago, and Christina just reached out to me and said that she is really doing well. She's found an adoption competent therapist, so her healing has progressed, and we'll be really excited to have her back to hear more about her story. Enjoy this episode. Hello, everyone. This is Heidi Marble, your host. I am so excited to have an anonymous interview tonight with Christina. Her story is really, really beautiful, and she wants to share from her heart what her experiences have been as an adoptee. I would like to read the bio that she sent. Christina is a devoted mother to 2 young boys, a loving wife to 1 amazing man. She is both an adoptive daughter and a biological daughter, a youngest sister and an oldest sister. Christina is a caregiver to her family and to her parents who seek her assistance to improve their quality of life following neurological trauma and disease. As she adjusts to her post-reunion life, she wishes to be a champion for adoptees who follow this path in seeking the answers to their true existence on Earth. So Christina, a couple of things stand out to me. First of all, the duality, being both an adoptive daughter, biological daughter, and the true existence part really touches me. Maybe we can just start with that. Tell us how you found Pulled by the Root, and then maybe if you could just dive in and tell us your adoption story.
Sure. I read American Baby, and throughout the last couple of years, I felt that I really needed to tell my story. And so after reading the book, I decided just to go ahead and reach out to her, and she graciously responded within a day, and said that she was extremely busy, but I should probably just look into Heidi Marble's podcast. And at that point, I thought, oh, podcast. Why had I not thought of podcast as something to connect to the adoptee community? And I'm so glad that I did. So I reached out to you, Heidi, and graciously again, within 24 hours, responded and said, yes, this is great. I would love to talk more. So here we are, and it makes me excited to be able to share on this platform for sure. So my story, I feel like I have a hard time knowing where to start sometimes because there was a story that I knew for 35 years. And then the new story that came into existence. So thinking of all of that, I will start by I was born. My birth certificate states that I was born in Pennsylvania. I was adopted into a family in Ohio, but we were right across the border from Pennsylvania. So, that question was always out there for me, but adopted into a family, Catholic family through Catholic Social Services. And I have an older sister who is 4 years older than myself. She is biological to my parents. They had infertility issues and went through a lot to become with child with her, and it turned out they had twins that they found out at the last minute kind of thing. And my sister's twin brother only survived 5 days post birth. And so they decided that instead of continuing the trauma of infertility, that they would adopt. And the story gets kind of fuzzy from there. When I think they waited, or they had to wait, right, through the services. Right. It was 1979, so it wasn't 20 years earlier when things were moving maybe at a faster rate. So they waited. She's 4 years older than me. And so I ended up with them and was told not much about, I actually, I don't remember anybody telling me I was adopted until I was in 3rd grade. And I had a classroom project about being unique. And I remember going home and saying, I don't know what's unique about me, Mom. And she said, well, sit down, and pulled out my baby book and said, just so you know, you were adopted and we brought you into the family. And this is what makes you unique and special. And,
yeah.
yeah. And what's really funny is in our recent conversations, my mom does not remember it the same way I do. She remembers telling me, just like they told me to do at the social services, we told you from the time you were born. But anyway, that's the memory that I live on, is this 3rd grade memory. And it was just my mom. It wasn't my dad involved. Loving home. I grew up, 2 loving parents, a very large extended family that all lived within a mile of each other. And we saw each other all the time. And there's all these people that are so alike, and they all look alike and they act alike. And I just never felt I fit in because they loved me, but I always knew I was different. I definitely didn't really belong into this bloodline of people. So fast
Yeah, there's
forward
definitely
maybe,
a disconnect.
Yeah, there was. And no one made me feel that way, because honestly, we just didn't talk about it. No one talked about it. I was just a member of the family, which was lovely. I felt included, but no one talked about the fact that I was not of their bloodline. So about the time I was 16, the World Wide Web became in existence. And I can remember sitting in a computer lab in high school and just thinking, oh my gosh, this is my way to do this anonymously. Here I am anonymously, and try and find some way of reuniting with my birth family. And so I did some of the things that were available at the time, but to no avail. And I remember the second conversation I had with my adoptive mother was around that time. And she said, just know, I'll always help you. I'm here for you, and I'll help you if you want to search, but we can't tell your dad. Like he won't be able to understand it. So right there, I was like, well, forget that. I'm not gonna.
That's so hard. That's so hard.
Yeah. At the time, I just thought, well, okay, I will go ahead and just not talk about it again, which I continued throughout into my 20s. I remember hearing you say on a different podcast that it was something you were proud of and you told everybody about, and it was the complete opposite for myself. I hid it. I didn't discuss it. I can remember the conversation I had with my spouse, which we had known each other for years, and I don't know, it was just something that I didn't talk about.
I want to hug you. I'm so sick
cry.
I cry for every podcast, so you are in good company. And I have a feeling that people that are listening, this is a safe, raw, and real place. And I think, I wrote down a quote. I actually have it on my desk in front of me, and I think it's really would be a nice interjection here. Secrets dig a debt. Secrets dig a debt. And I think when our souls have to carry this, the shame and the secrecy, for something that, not to sound entitled, but my goodness, being adopted person, we shouldn't have to feel so bad about wanting to know who we are. The anonymous part is really, it's powerful. It's a space where you can be free, but it also makes me sad that that's the place that people have to go to be free until they can, literally. So I wonder if you could sink into that a little bit more, because you're starting to reveal why you're anonymous. And can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because I have a feeling it's to protect someone else. I'm sure.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, it kind of flash forwards to reunion, and when I finally, I did a few other things along the way, got some non-identifying information that I petitioned through a court when I was like in my 20s before I got married, and nothing came of it for the most part. And so 35 years old, my father-in-law said, he was retired, I had a lot of time on his hand, I'm gonna do a family tree. Would you like me to try and find your birth family? Well, sure, yeah, okay. So ancestry.com, spit in the tube, all the things. And within a couple of months, we had results which connected us to my biological father's aunt. And my father-in-law, still being my searcher, my search angel, I guess we could call him. He immediately reached out to her with my permission. He was so kind, and like trying to make sure that everything was okay with me and how he was doing things. And so he reached out to her, and she said, yeah, I kind of remember one of my nephews, and blah, blah, blah. So here's his name. So we reach out to him, and my father-in-law makes first contact. And my life got turned upside down from that moment on. I don't even know. It really wasn't that long ago. It was only 6 years. Actually, we just had our anniversary of contact 2 days ago. And a lot of emotion in that time. But what's funny is I'm looking back and thinking about this, and one of my first things I knew that I had to do was tell my adoptive family.
Right.
Before I felt comfortable making contact with anybody. My father-in-law had, but I said, no, I feel like I need to tell them. I owe it to them to do it. So
hard.
So hard. So I made the call, and they were, okay, you found them. I understand your desire to do that. Okay. And I said, all right, here's the details, and I'm going to make contact. And that was kind of, I was able to leave that and then go and do the meetings and the talks and things. And, what I uncovered was just so amazing. I mean, it was my origin story. So much. And I know that you understand this because of
so deeply. It's like there's just this huge missing. I almost feel like, those coloring books we used to have, and it's just coloring in the inside of us. It's just like filling in that space with color and definition, and being able to become really ourselves for the first time in a way, because we have that missing piece put back in. And I think, when I hear the ache and the pain in your voice when you call your adopted family, it's such a risk to take, and it's so frightening to do that, because I can't speak for you, but there's a part of us as adoptees that we feel grateful, and we worry, like, are they going to reject us? Is this a selfish decision? I think those are some of the things that we're grappling with, in addition to just this primal desire to figure out who we really are. It is highly emotional experience on so many levels.
Oh, one of the definitely most intense times in my life, for sure, that I didn't expect. And honestly, I never really talked about coming out of the fog, but that's when it all happened. I mean, it was all of a sudden I have all of this information, and it's a lot. And I think that's also when I started to realize deeper feelings that I had suppressed and dealt with. So, if we're to continue the topic of the anonymous, is that when I finally was asked from my adoptive family again, how's it going? What happened? They didn't take it well.
No.
They told me that they understood my desire to know and to have information. They didn't think it would go any further.
Yeah, Christina, I know.
Yeah. So, well, that part just has been very hard.
It is such a horrible spot, and I connect with you so deeply on this, because that is, people that listen to the podcast know the destruction that happened because I chose to have an affair with my birth family. That's the best way I can describe it, because I couldn't give them up once I found them. And I began to take trips and calls and lie. I actually went 5 years, almost 5 years, without connecting with my birth sister and my birth family, until I realized she had cancer. And then the gloves were off at that point. And it was just this bloody emotional battle that went on. And I think that, telling our stories, Christina, and being able to allow space for hearing the pain that is involved.
Yeah.
It's really, really important. And what I hope people get is a better understanding of the loss surrounding adoption, and that, the people that adopted us, they have the instincts to want to know who their family is, and have pride in that. And it's like, why wouldn't we want that too?
Yeah,
right. And I really think it's about educating people more. I don't know what the answers are, but I feel like the answer lies in the truth, and then we can share our experiences. Maybe someone will be helped in some way, or have a deeper level of understanding. So, like, can you give me a little more detail on what that looked like? Like, how did you then move forward? So your adoptive family is now letting you know, this isn't working.
Right.
So then what?
So I started to put up boundaries, because I thought, well, I got to that point of, I haven't been in control of any of this. And it's about time for me to be in control of it. I'm a grown adult with children of my own, and I can make these decisions for myself. And so I started to put up some boundaries with them, and just tried to avoid contact for a long time. Following a lot of events that occurred, I started to try and educate my adoptive mother about what I was going through, but it was very clear early on that it wasn't going to be something that she was able to understand. And so put up more boundaries. In the middle of all of this, a year after I found everybody, and my father and I, my adoptive father and I, had a big falling out, as well as my husband trying to get to my father about what I'm going through and what I'm experiencing. He got sick, terminally sick. And
Christina.
I dropped everything, and I spent a year taking care of him and my mom, my adoptive parents, flying across the country every month for weeks at a time to try and help them, because there were parallels in my professional life. And so I just felt this. There was actually a statement from my adoptive sister who she said she wasn't flying back as often, and she said, "I can't help it that you feel guilty, and that's why you're doing this."
No.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. No.
Yeah. Oh man.
Christina, you're kidding.
It was rough. But so he passed away 3 years ago, and I put everything else on hold. I put all the reunion time on hold. So anyway, fast forward, and I'm still not able to get through to my adoptive mother, but I have a wonderful relationship with my biological family. My biological father, I was able to connect with, and he had a wealth of information because a person had reached out to him the year before I contacted him and said that she was his daughter with this woman. And he said, well, the dates don't match up. I don't think that's right. And it turns out that my biological mother had given birth to her 3 years after myself, and also relinquished her.
Wow.
And drum roll, our mother was also adopted.
Oh my goodness. Are you serious?
Into a family who could not have children. And so she was first, they adopted another, and then they had 5 kids of their own. She grew up in this horrible environment that was not great anyway. So she relinquished me. She met another man, had this baby, and they weren't able to care for her properly. So they relinquished her, but stayed together and had more kids of their own. So
yeah, that's a head scratcher.
The levels and the layers are just overwhelming, for sure. So I have a half sister, who was also grew up in an adoptive family with an older biological brother to her parents. And she knew about me her whole life. And she reached out. Yeah. She reached out to our biological mother. This story, she and I are the shining moment of all of this.
I know. I feel that way with my sister too. It's like it's worth all the pain, the suffering, just to have that beautiful relationship.
And that is what makes it all important. But she had reached out to him because she had reached out to our biological mother via some letters, and our biological mother was very much not willing to have a relationship. She responded and said, I've thought about you on your birthday, but you have a family and I have a family, and I don't want anything to do with you. And so she then responded again and said, I hope you have a good life. By the way, this is your father. And you look like him. And so my sister said, well, okay, I'll reach out to him. And that was when he said, this must be another baby. She had another baby that she relinquished. So,
oh my goodness.
Also, he told my father-in-law before I made contact that not only did I have this sister and other siblings, he had had 3 other daughters as well.
No.
That
Wow.
that our biological mother had passed away almost exactly a year before from breast cancer. And he knew that because he had kept contact with my half sister, and she found out from our other half siblings because our biological mother knew she had cancer for 6 years and didn't tell a soul. And she did not get treatment and was dying slowly of breast cancer and alcoholism. And they, a year before she died, found these letters and reached out to my sister and said, "We know she doesn't want to have anything to do with you, but we do." And she told us that we could do whatever we wanted when she was dead. And so, yeah, I'm still grappling with how I feel about her death.
Yeah, I mean, just personally, I'm really mad for you.
Yeah.
I'm feeling very defensive. It feels so hard to understand. Like I think that's the part that makes my mother's heart ache. Is that I just can't imagine feeling that way. Like, what is that? Is that a defense mechanism? Is she feeling too guilty to, I suppose there's so many psychological layers, but it just feels, not to be harsh, but boy, does that feel cold. That just ooh, ouch.
And, I talked to some of her adoptive siblings, well, one of them, and she said she grappled with a lot of demons. And that was kind of the word that stuck to me. And I do feel sorry for her, having been adopted herself and never coming to grips with it. She told everybody she didn't want to know. She didn't need to know. We've since found her too. My maternal grandmother, who gave her up, and she also was very much not interested.
That's so fascinating.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So there's this whole other layer of adoption that, us reaching out to community and wanting to talk about it and wanting to invest in others and make our story known. There's this other layer of people that want to take it to their grave and not talk about it and not face the demons and face what is obviously something extremely difficult for adoptees and birth mothers.
Yeah. I think I'd love for you to speak a little bit more about reunion, because I think both of us, yours sounds a little bit more complex than mine, but as far as the dynamics of, the adoptive parents not wanting this to continue and relationships to bloom and all of the things that happened, and then the rejection that happened from both your adopted and biological, mothers, and all of that is just extremely painful to be tangled in. What would you advise, like, adoptees who are seeking their truth? What would you tell them based on your experience?
Well, I did not seek out help until I was in the throes of this. I realized that I needed support more so than my wonderful husband and family, or, my husband and my friends could give me. And so I did end up reaching out to support groups, and they helped me a lot. I felt just like with you, I feel like I can trust you because you've been through it. And so I feel like even though I've met and come across so many sympathetic members of my family and reunion, and everyone other than my adoptive family wants to make me feel included and happy and wanted, I still have this disconnect because of my adoptive family and everything else. And so finding the community is what has helped me deal with some of my feelings. And, I did seek a therapist, especially when my dad was ill. But I didn't really know what I needed still. I was still grappling with him dying and all of these other things happening. And so I'm just now trying to find an adoptee competent therapist that I can kind of work through some of these things with. So that's my advice, is to dive deep into the community and feel like you can trust them, because we're the only ones that can have some kind of sympathy behind all of the layers of what is happening. And, I feel one of the things I'm also dealing with is that I still feel so guarded toward my biological father, who, if we rewind a bit, he has been phenomenal. He was extremely welcoming and desired to reconnect with me. And his daughters and I are trying to build relationships, and he wants to get to know my family and the kids, and he's been great, but I'm still so guarded with him, and I want to be able to find a way to let down that shield, which I think is because of the fact that I'm still close with my adoptive family, even though we don't talk about this massive major thing happening in my life.
Right. It's like a herd of elephants, not just an elephant in the room. It's right? Like a herd.
Totally. And I'm having a secret affair with him and everybody else because...
Oh, it's so fun, isn't it?
And the guilt. Oh my gosh, the guilt. I mean, there's already so much guilt. And then to think, well, I'm going to take a few extra days when I'm visiting you and let you know I'm going home, but I'm not really going home. Just the guilt of all of it. I want to just shed it, and I need to find a way to do that.
You just, you're still living this. Here you have a beautiful adopted person who simply wants the very basics, which is to know who they truly are. And I know that it's complicated. I know that people feel territorial, but to me, it feels almost wrong. If anybody's listening to this that is getting ready to adopt a child, please, I beg you to listen to adoptees who are living the trauma of that experience, and know that you can parent them through some of this in a way that will actually endure you to them more. I'm sure you feel the same way. If your adoptive family would have, white knuckled it and just held on and got through this with you, could you have loved them anymore? Probably not. To have that kind of love and acceptance instead of the opposite of that, because there's a threat of losing you or whatever gets wrapped up into that. There's so many layers, but I think, as adoptees, we pay such a heavy price. And I also think in my own parenting, and I don't know how you feel about this, Christina, but when I had my son, I think I did so much fear-based parenting and never wanting him to feel abandoned and blah, blah, blah. It is like these issues don't just stay inside of us. We spread them to our relationships. We just do. I went on a tangent there.
Well, that's okay. I mean, all of it is relevant. It's all definitely things that I have had to deal with. And I feel like I still was probably in the fog when I had my boys. I know a lot of people kind of come out of it at that point, but I was deeply entrenched in my emotional inner issues, so much so that I was so fearful that they would not love me or attach to me. And I guess a segue to that is this is something I am embarrassed about, is that throughout this entire process, my children were 5 and 7 when I began Reunion, and I was so shameful and guilty about finding everybody that I didn't tell them, you know, why is mom so sad? Why is mom crying all the time? And then this man comes to visit, and we say, oh, this is just a friend of mom's coming to visit, when in reality, it's their biological grandfather who just wants to get to know them. And it was probably
Christina.
like 3 months later, I finally said to my husband, okay, I'm done. I'm done with the secrets. I'm done with living this fear of abandonment. And we told them, I mean, they were young. They thought it was great. Oh, great. I have new cousins. Oh, it's great. But we still live around this. We still hide from my mother. I mean, they know that when she comes to visit or we go to visit her, we don't talk about that family. And it's
so hard.
Really hard.
Oh, Christina.
I'm still hopeful that we'll get past it, but I'm not sure that we will. And I just need to be okay with that, knowing that I'm building my family the way I get to do it.
Yeah. It's just having a tiny bit of control.
Yeah.
And I think it's so hard. It's like, what do you choose? Do you choose guilt or do you choose resentment?
Right.
if you stop, having a relationship with them, then you begin to resent that you're not able to, for whatever reasons. And it's being trapped in these very high wattage emotions all of the time, and then go ahead and try to function like a normal human being in the middle of all this. It is such an exhausting experience. And
put aside your own issues in order to focus on this person that you love. I mean, they love me. We have been in love my whole life, but there's just too many issues that they can't. And I just recently realized that by them telling me that they were not accepting of what I was doing, I realized that their love was conditional. We talk about, if you have kids, you have unconditional love. And it was at that moment, just recently, that I realized, oh, it's conditional on me fitting into what their life plan was, which was not being reunited with my family and was continuing to love only them. And that's hard.
It is one of the hardest truths, I think. And it is so difficult to conceptualize that is the truth. It's really, really hard to swallow. Because, we've been told one thing: we'll always love you, love you no matter what, except there's some fine print. Like, wait a minute.
I probably always knew that because I was the good adoptee. My sister, who's biological, was like, she was kind of the rebel. I was good. I didn't want to upset them. I didn't want to make them mad. I didn't want to disappoint them. So I kind of always knew this was the case, but to find out in such a way is man, it's a slap in the face for sure.
It is. And you just said it so perfectly. It's just that feeling when you realize, oh my goodness, I was put here to fill. It's kind of like a job. This is my job. I've been placed here without any choice of mine to fill a hole that exists, and whatever reasons. And these things exist in biological families. It's trauma is not specific to adoptees, but my goodness, do we have the mother load, no pun intended, just all of this other stuff, it's really a lot. What do you think, Christina? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Please finish.
Well, I was just going to say that it's difficult to grapple with, you know, am I overthinking things? Is this something that I need to just get over and deal with? And again, I should be lucky and all of these things. And so everyone has issues to deal with and to kind of figure out in their lives. But that's, again, why this community is so important, because it's people that can identify with you and validate some of those feelings. That was my thought.
Yeah, no, that was a really important point, because I think for some reason when I went through it, I honestly thought I was the only one in the world that was this selfish. I would really love for you to speak to, the adopted parents. What could you say to them to reassure them, to maybe advise them that go this way, that not that, basically.
Right. Well, I have a lot of hope that in our generation, which that the education and the counseling was not as robust as it is now. I don't know that that's true. I'm just hoping that, there should be counseling that's involved with undertaking an adoption. And I try and educate anybody that says to me, oh, we're thinking about adopting. Well, they don't want to hear the adoptee's voice all the time, because that makes it something they don't want to hear. They don't want to hear that side of it. So I really hope that professionals and agencies are providing that type of very needed counseling and education on this is possible. This is what's going to happen, possibly. This is how you should deal with this. And, knowing the primal wound and knowing the adopted self and how that develops is so important for anybody wanting to adopt. And, I tried to get the message across to my parents of, I don't love you any less. There's enough love. I don't love you any less. I just need to know this, and you're not going to be replaced. And everyone can be a parent and a grandparent. And just also reflecting on yourself. I think a lot of what happened with my adoptive parents is that they did not take care of their own issues regarding infertility and the loss of a child, and their need to family. And so, gosh, therapy, counseling, exclamation point.
Yeah. Underline, highlight, bold.
Yes.
All the things. Bring it out.
And again, the generations are different, and I hope that that's changing. I think that it is, but I hope it's changing.
Yes, I hope so too. And I hope with these conversations, and it feels like, there's a little bit of a tsunami happening globally where people are trying to change laws and draw more attention to the reality of it. And is there anything else that you wanted to share about your journey as we wrap things up? Anything that we didn't get a chance to talk about that you really want people to know? Because a lot of people are in pain, and you are still living this pain on a very real level.
Yeah.
It's not over yet.
And right. And I think that that's really what I would like to hopefully educate any other adoptees listening that are going through it or potentially going to go through it, is that I didn't realize the extent to which my life would be upended. There's always this fantasy with closed adoption and this unknowing, and I just didn't realize that it was going to change my life. in a very, very real way, and still is. And so just being able to be kind to yourself through all of it, because again, we didn't have the choice in this matter. We're the ones who have to live it though. And, seek help and find people that will support you and put up boundaries when you need to in order to survive.
Oh, Christina.
Yeah. And find other people like us that can talk about it and in a real way. Yeah.
Yes. So beautifully said. Thank you so much for sharing, for opening up your heart and letting us in to hear about your experience. It was just beautiful. Our time together meant a lot to me, and I hope to follow up with you and hopefully have good news, maybe some resolution. So
yeah. Well, I so appreciate what you're doing, and that you're taking the time to talk to the important members of this situation and get our voices out. And we'll keep fighting for what we know is what we need and what is true to us.
absolutely, because what happened matters, and
Yeah.
it has to be acknowledged and addressed. It's time. It's prime time.
Secrets are not good for anybody, for anything. Secrets do nothing but fracture relationships.
That's right. The truth is, it can be painful, but it is the necessary way to heal.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Christina.
Thank you, Heidi.